Greetings, brothers and sisters. This is Alec P. Baldwin. He put out a message on Mother's Day. I taped it last night. Usually I try to watch these things fresh, but I thought it might disappear because, it looked kind of, we'll just get into it here.
A lot of changes coming. A lot of changes coming.
So that didn't sound good. He seems to be, I don't know, is this a basement or, where is he right now? Like, is he on the lam? Is he running from the Fuzz, right? Are you running from the Fuzz, bro? Like, look at where he is here. He's got some sort of fancy, like, $2 million apartment condo thing in Manhattan and some, like, $6 million house in the Hamptons in New York, beach house. And he seems to be, on the lam here, running from the Fuzz, right?
I hope for the better. I hope for the better. Happy Mother's Day to all you mothers out there.
All you mothers.
Happy Mother's Day to my sisters and to my brothers, their wives, their daughters who have children. Happy Mother's Day to my mom.
You got your mom last? You got all the mothers out there watching, and his brothers' wives, and their children who have children, and then finally to his mom.
My father's mother was
also known as your grandmother.
I was very close to her, my grandmother, my father's mother, who died so many years ago. But
yeah, and why are you wishing her happy Mother's Day? How is that, relevant here? How does she get a shout out on Mother's Day? She's been dead for years.
Happy Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day to my wife, Hilaria.
You got to Hilaria last. That's going to go well. That's maybe why he's hiding in the basement here.
When I met her, I had one child. And
that one child is pretty screwed up, right? She's allergic or she's got panic attacks. She's afraid of her own heartbeat. The thing that's keeping you alive, amongst other things, right? And, she said she suffered quite a bit of damage from your divorce.
Now I have 7. I'm about to have 8.
Yes, he is. He has 7. He's about to have 8 kids. He had 7. Now he's going to have 8 because his wife, Hilaria, is pregnant.
Which is just, I guess the best way to put it, is that's what I'm doing now.
That's what I'm doing now because I can no longer act, because of the shooting a coworker thing.
With my life. But happy Mother's Day to everyone who...
That's a mother. If all you mothers out there, happy Mother's Day.
Help, not just to bring us into the world, but to care for us, but to keep caring.
After he does some sort of pro-abortion thing that he's going to do later on Instaghoul, and but right now is a shout out to mothers.
The role of a father is difficult to define sometimes. I've always said the same line. I'm sorry if I said this before. My dad said that parenting was a competition between two people where the father always won the bronze medal. The mother came in first and second.
That sounds more kind of hostile than it is a shout out to moms.
And, but to have a great mother, I have some friends I've known, their mothers have been just they're so lucky, they're remarkably lucky.
He doesn't like his mom.
And my kids are remarkably lucky.
Yes, they got a mother who somehow became Spanish even though she grew up in Boston. She's a miracle woman.
They're so lucky. Because Hilaria is such a good mom.
She's the mom of the century.
She's just the most incredible mother. She loves her kids and her patience with them. You know, sometimes I want to just...
Shoot them. You just want to shoot them.
Ship them off to military school. I'm kidding.
They're like, toddlers, right? He's gonna put his kids, most of the kids are like the oldest one, something like 8. They're like 8, 5, 6, 4, and 3, and 2, and infants. And he wants to ship them off to military school.
But my patience is not as vast as hers and as reliable as hers.
That's why you shouldn't have handguns.
I'm not doing too badly.
I'm just hiding out in the basement, trying to, make sure the Fuzz don't pick me up.
My wife is a saint.
Yeah, Saint Hilaria. This girl, the only person in the world who grew up in Boston, Spain.
And I'm sorry, as you can imagine, for people who don't have their mothers with them today on Mother's Day.
You mean the one that you shot? The mother that you shot, who has a child who doesn't have their mother because you shot her. Is that what you're saying here? Okay, well, let's listen to that again.
And I'm sorry, as you can imagine, for people who don't have their mothers with them today on Mother's Day. So, happy Mother's Day.
For what? Wow, this is savage. I think he was referring to the woman that he shot and her kid, right? And then said Happy Mother's Day, right? This is like some desperate cry for help. I mean, he's in Britney land right here.
All of you. Bye.
What is he? He's in some sort of, was this a barn or a basement? I mean, he's like hiding away from his family, and Hilaria came out to do a Mother's Day tape in here, hiding from the Fuzz. Just, where is he? Like, going in here, this basement, there's just a barn, might be a barn or some outbuilding or something, right? He's hiding from the Fuzz. Grouchy Gardner 2021 said, I really hope you're healthy. You sounded quite cryptic and concerned when you said, a lot of changes is coming, hopefully for the better. I would be devastated if you were ill. Oh, who's Grouchy Gardner? Dude, I'm praying for your heart, right? Hey, you resemble the late actor Christopher Plummer. Beautiful words. Thank you, Alec. Especially the last part. Happy Mother's Day to the ones that do not have their mothers. Happy Mother's Day to your beautiful wife. I'm so lucky. So much love. I'm not sure what that has. Why are you so lucky, right? Because you didn't get shot by Alec Baldwin. Did you work with Alec before and you avoided? You are absolutely a wonderful husband and father, Alec. Have faith. Everything is going to be okay. Love you and your beautiful wife. Are you okay, Alec? If I may call you that, after all your years watching the movies, I feel like I know you. Very nice. Happy Mother's Day to your lovely wife. Alec, it's Mother's Day. Go home to your wife and kids. Stop. Sending love to you. Your family. Happy Mother's Day to your beautiful wife. Thank you. Well, I guess they edit out all the other comments, right? They restrict people who, might say something about his wife coming from Boston, Spain, and him shooting his coworker in the face. Okay, this just did. So I was about to edit the video you're now watching, and Alec B. Baldwin posted another thing on Instaghoul. I X'd out of his other video, and there was another video up. I don't know if it came in this morning, I already had that video. It probably came in, this morning or last night. Anyways, let's check it out. Here he is. He looks a lot better. He's out of the basement. He's clean shaven. He's a little bit peppy, right? I said, what do you got, Alec? Before I show you this, now I'm editing this edit, right? This extra little clip I'm putting in here. You can tell Hilaria made this video because she's holding the camera so you get this tall version, right? A lot of the Instaghoul videos I do are tall version. But you saw earlier that Alec Baldwin had the wide version, right? Which makes it, it gives you more of a better view. Like all my videos I take with my camera, I shoot it in the wide version, right? And I want to appreciate that. Like, Hilaria doesn't do it, and most celebrities don't, but Alec does. So at least, I could say that about Alec, right? He posts it in the wide version. It makes it easier for me to crap on, right? Not this Hilaria version where it's, it's a tall video. And yeah, okay, you can still a video, but it's not as good, right? So shout out to Alec Baldwin for making his Instaghoul posts in a wide version. Most times. Sometimes he goes tall, but mostly it's wide.
One characteristic doesn't define you.
You are a complicated and multifaceted human.
Whole human.
Have the courage to look within. The soul defines you. Take the time to know yourself. Be proud of being a multi-human. All things human.
Okay, so they're using their kids here to read a script, or I don't know, in some cases they can't read, obviously. But they're being fed lines, right? They're being fed lines, liberal lines, social, whatever it is, right? And, they don't know what they're saying. They don't even probably know some of the words that they're using. And they're just parroting their agenda. I think this comes from Hilaria. This sounds like Hilaria more than Alec.
Are fluid and on a spectrum. You don't have to separate your parts.
Feel free to immerse in and express all parts of your identity.
All parts of your identity. If you are a girl who grew up in Boston, America, with white parents named Hayward Thomas, both of them very Anglo, both of them very, Scottish and Anglo, and you don't have a drop of Spanish blood in you, but you guys like going vacationing in Spain, then you can just say you're from Spain. You can fake an accent, change your name from, I don't know, something like Hillary Thomas to Hilaria Baldwin. You can marry a stupid, aging, once A-list movie star and convince him to have a whole bunch of children, right? And, promote your blog and your Instaghoul videos, and you become a celebrity yourself. And then later on, when it all comes out, you just cling to your, all parts of yourself. Go ahead and express all parts of yourself, even if they're, not factually correct and they're a little crazy.
And express all parts of your identity without being shamed, limited, or bullied.
We know what that's about, Hilaria.
Be simplified, regardless of those who want to hold you back. Through primitive thinking and ignorance.
Okay, what does that mean, dude? Give me an example of primitive thinking and ignorance, right? These kids don't know what they're saying, right? It's like, shameful.
Freely in your cultures. No one can find your cultures.
You don't have to prove yourself to anyone.
Labels.
Exactly. You have to prove that you are actually Spanish and that your accent is real, like that your first language wasn't English, even though it was.
Are lazy. Be free to be you. Don't lose your voice ever. Fight for happiness, even in your darkest moments.
Hey kids, your dad wants to send you to military school. Is this your way of redeeming yourselves in his eyes?
Everyone else is worth it. Feel connected to all other humans. We are more similar and different. Be a force of kindness and strength. Inspire hope and...
Like, how many bumper stickers did you have to find to make this video?
Others. Inspire hope. Leave this world better than you found it.
Now, first of all, I want to see the other parts of the film. Like, I want to see all the outtakes. I want the whole thing, like every bit of footage you got where you're trying to force your kids to say these things. Because, bribery, what did you offer them? What did you promise them, right? What did your nannies, like how many people were involved in this? I need a story, the making of this video kind of thing. Because you can see the kids are, you got them to say the lines, but it's starting to leak through. And what this kid just said, leave the world better than you found it. That's something that's big in heartfulness. But it's supposed to be real, right? You're supposed to really leave the world better than you found it, and not just environmental. In fact, it's more about spiritually, what you produce inside yourself, your thoughts. I mean, this is, the heartfulness, the essence of heartfulness is that you have a good heart and you're putting out good energy and you're cleaning out your hate and your anger and you're not just, churning out bad emotions and bad feelings and bad intentions and just broadcasting them internally out into the physical world, and then it manifests into whatever, right? But, how has Hilaria and Alec Baldwin made the world a better place, right? I mean, Alec Baldwin's been in a bunch of crappy movies, and Hilaria shilled for all these companies on her Instaghoul page. And, he shot somebody, and she faked appropriated culture. Like, how did, how are you guys making the world a better place?
Life is beautiful. Live it fully. You deserve to live all your dreams. Todos los sueños.
I can't wait to meet you, my daughter.
My sister. I'm excited to
Wow.
see you, little sister. I'm excited to meet you at my academia.
My daughter.
My sister. My sister!
Okay, they're revealing their sister. I saw a headline on page 6 that they're giving this message to this unborn kid coming into this wonderful family. The problem is she appropriated a culture, and really, most people haven't forgot about it, and she has a few, straggling fans. And he shot a woman, not in the face, I say that a lot, but he shot a coworker and then blamed everybody but himself, right? Even blamed her. And, and now they're making videos where it sounds like some sort of cult where they're indoctrinating their kids into this worldview, right? And, it's the Baldwins, right? It's a Mary Baldwin Christmas. So then there was this, one of my viewers sent me. This guy is the guy who is the administrator. I think he's the head guy over at CNN, right? According to the title, doctor says misinformation is having disturbing effect on life expectancy in the U.S. In an exclusive interview with CNN's Pamela Brown, FDA chief Robert Califf explains why he says the leading cause of death in the U.S. is misinformation. Misinformation, which means the truth community, means everybody posting things that isn't the official story on the internet is responsible for more deaths than everything else. Misinformation is killing people out there. It's just killing people. This is according to the FDA chief. We better start censoring more people to save lives.
Why do you think misinformation is now the leading cause of death in the U.S.?
First of all, thanks for having me on, and I'm glad to be able to talk about such an important and critical topic. I have to acknowledge there's no way to quantify this, so I can't say, the numbers come out just like we would.
Dude, you lose credibility when your dog is barking in the background, right? He says he can't quantify this. That means it's not factual or scientific, right? This is just his ridiculous opinion, and I'll get into that more in a minute. But, you can't quantify this. So I don't have any numbers. I don't have any scientific data to prove this. I'm just, I'm just shilling for the powers that be that want to censor people, right?
Heart disease or cancer. But let's look at it. We're in a country now which is seeing an erosion in our life expectancy, so that we're now living on average 5 years shorter than the average of other high-income countries.
See, this is really misleading. So you look underneath, it says the big interview It's the big interview, right? The big salad. FDA chief, misinformation, the leading cause of death in the U.S. Dr. Robert Califf of California, FDA commissioner. So it sounds like, because he's an expert, they always use these experts, and he's supposed to be a man of science, right? And he's saying that our life expectancy is now 5 years, has dropped by 5 years, and compared to other countries of our status, we're much lower. And so now he's throwing out an idea, just like some drunk guy talking at a bar, but this guy has credibility. And CNN wants this to be said, right? They want, more pressure on misinformation, because now they're saying misinformation's killing people more than anything else. I mean, not just killing some people, but killing people more than anybody else. So we have to tighten it up and only let people listen to the official story, right? That's the vibe here. Because no one's watching CNN, right? Their CNN Plus thing got, slammed. I mean, no one listens to this stuff. Like, it's older people and people who are not the desired demographic. And so, this is their point of view, because they're getting killed by, in terms of the ratings, in terms of opinion, by people who are, giving a more truthful account of things. But they bring out these experts who don't have any scientific data, right? And can't show. I mean, listen to what he says here.
Now, of course, these are all based on estimates, but this is quite disturbing. And as you correctly pointed out, let's look at the causes of death. As you correctly said, heart disease, cancer, COVID. Much of this is common chronic disease that we know a lot about how to treat.
So I'm going to come back to heart disease and cancer. Of course, COVID is diminishing. The amount of deaths from COVID, again, they were never just singular COVID deaths. Like 95% of the deaths were with comorbidities, 4.0 comorbidities. I'll get to that in just a moment, which we all know, right? But number 4 is accidents, right? And accidents really means this. Death by medical error or accident is the nation's leading cause of accidental death, right? Medical error or medical accident. And so here from CNBC, the third leading cause of death in the U.S. most doctors don't want you to know about, which is either 250,000 people die from medical errors. Other reports claim that the number is as high as 440,000 people. And that's, from 2019 or 2020. They don't have these numbers up to date, right? And so medical errors, when he talks about medical errors, when he talks about errors, the number one error is medical errors. And that is, the fourth leading cause of death. And of course, COVID is something new. So it used to be the third leading cause of death. And COVID, as we know, is not, is disappearing in terms of the amount of deaths, right? It's not having as many deaths. Let's go to that here. So just to give some perspective here, right? This is where the big spike was with 2021 in January. And you remember what happened. Something was released around there. And then we had, ups and downs and whatever it is in terms of deaths. And here in April and then May, here in May 2nd, there was 3,000. There was only 2,000 before that, 2,000 deaths. And then down here, 508 deaths this past week, right? And so we've seen with Omicron that deaths have been drastically reduced, as have cases, right? And, like COVID is basically not a concern anymore. So you had the big spikes here. There's a couple of, over a period of time back in 2020, and then in 2021, and then not so much in 2022, right? In January here, and then now it's down again. And of course, these are all things with comorbidities, an average of 4 comorbidities for 95% of the deaths, right? And so, like, we know that about COVID, so COVID isn't something where they can necessarily call it the third killer, the third leading cause of death, right? Because it is, a short-lived 2-year, the last couple of years, right? It's not going to be the same every year. It's going to diminish because Omicron is supposedly less deadly.
And of course, with COVID, the situation is we know that if you're vaccinated and up to date with your vaccinations, you have a 90% reduction in the risk of death. And then if you are unlucky enough to get infected or unfortunate enough, another 90% reduction in death with the antivirals, which are now available. So almost no one in this country should be dying from COVID if we were up to date on our vaccinations and got appropriate antiviral treatment.
So that's misleading, right? Because what he's saying here in the context of this conversation is that medical misinformation, people saying things, anti-vaccine things, things about vaccine hesitancy, is causing people not to take vaccines or antivirals, and that's what's causing COVID deaths. But we've also heard from the official sources, powers that be, Fauci and other people, that people who are immunocompromised, those are people with the 4 comorbidities, right? Those are people with multiple issues health-wise. The vaccines, they don't have an immune response because they're immunocompromised. And those are people who are dying because their immune system isn't fighting it off. Of course, now with Omicron, it's supposed to be less deadly, right? And so it's not misinformation. Like, it's not even logical what he's saying here, right? Because the people who are immunocompromised, those are the people that are more like, those are the people who are dying. Those are people who have compromised immune systems, and their immune systems don't give a response to either COVID or the vaccine, right? Because they just don't have an immune system. And so that's not medical misinformation, right? That's not, that's not the cause of death here, right? Like he's saying the cause of death is medical misinformation, but it's their already, fragile health conditions and their immune system's not working. And so COVID being a part of that, right? But even if it isn't COVID, it's going to be something else. They're on their way out. I mean, it's just, your health gets to such an extent that you just, your immune system goes down and you have all these health conditions. They're just, you're a couple of years away from dying anyway, right? It might be COVID, it might be something else.
What has concerned me for a long time before the pandemic is that we're seeing this reduction in life expectancy from common.
See, what he just said there is really important because it's pre-COVID. The COVID numbers really haven't come in. They don't get the numbers out. Usually when you look at death numbers and, birth numbers and things, in terms of recording it and, really getting the statistical data, it takes a couple of years. And so, the life expectancy is from years ago. It isn't really to do with COVID, at least not in 2022 and probably 2021. They probably have it from 2020, right? And so, he's making this statement based in nothing to do with COVID, that life expectancy dropped pre-COVID in America, right? These numbers have been around for a while, and misinformation wasn't any of them. So I'm going to play that again because it's important.
What has concerned me for a long time before the pandemic is that we're seeing this reduction in life expectancy from common diseases like heart disease. I'm a cardiologist by training. Right. We know so much about what to do to prevent bad outcomes from heart disease. But somehow the messages, the reliable, truthful messages are not getting across, and it's being washed out by a lot of misinformation, which is leading people to make bad choices that are unfortunate for their health.
So here's a guy who's the chief of the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, and also a cardiologist. And he said misinformation is causing people to die from heart disease. Not, the foods that the FDA allows to be called foods, right? Now, lots of people on the right want to get rid of all these governmental agencies, the FDA, the EPA, and these types of agencies. And, these agencies aren't great, but if you go to countries that don't have things like this, it's much worse. But, so I'm not like an anti-FDA guy. But we know that the foods that are the two top killers are cancer and heart disease. And the same foods, the same toxic foods that a lot of them you really even can't even call natural food, right? There's things that's being sold, processed foods, and the way that the food is grown and the chemicals that are in it, Monsanto corn, I mean, all these things, right? Things that are, have carcinogens in them. They're selling carcinogens and the FDA is allowing it, as well as cigarettes, right? There's people dying from lung cancer because people know that cigarettes cause lung cancer, and yet the FDA allows them. There's a warning on it, but people, get to choose to smoke their, their death sticks, right? I mean, you look at what's in like most processed foods, the pink slime and foods that are sold at McDonald's. I mean, you go to Walmart, look at the people shopping, look at what's in there. You can see what they look like in terms of their health, right? Many of them. You have people who are, on respirators walking around, they look like they're on death's door. And then you look at what's in their shopping cart and you're like, well, of course they're, dying. I mean, this is all the foods that are in there are, things that are known to either cause cancer or heart disease or both, right? And the kind of, so-called food that's being consumed by the majority of Americans and other things, right? Other unhealthy things. We don't even know about, like in the Whispers of the Brighter World, in the Heartfulness Meditation, the electromagnetic poisoning, electromagnetic frequencies is talked about, electromagnetic pollution, all the Wi-Fi and things that have now been introduced into modern society that disrupts the subtle bodies, and we haven't even heard any sort of medical reports on how that affects us, right? And so, cancer and heart disease are preventable. Like he's talking about once you get heart disease, what you can do, and that people are not doing that because of medical misinformation or misinformation on the internet. Well, that might be the case, but what about prevention? What about a healthy lifestyle, right? And so it's not medical misinformation. It's the FDA allowing cancerous foods and foods that cause heart disease and other things and allowing them to be legal, right? And many of these things don't come with a warning, right? There's no warning on a package of Twinkies, right? There's a warning on cigarettes, but not on, processed food. There's no warning on a Big Mac, right? But these are the kind of things that will lead to cancer of, either cancer or heart disease, right? And so for him to come out and blame people who are saying things that don't go with the official story on the internet, and they want more censorship, what they want, like more, what do they want? Shut down, everybody who has a public opinion about something, right? And only the official story, and the pharmaceutical companies and, the people who are, on their payroll in one way or another will be able to speak up about, healthcare and things like that. That's getting rid of, all these other types of treatments and things that people have, and, preventative things that people are doing, right? In terms of, dietary consumption. I dislike reading the ingredients. Physically, in terms of food or in life in general. Like you have to read the ingredients on these experts. I've talked about that before, where I have to, you can't trust people because they're liars. You can't trust the people who are putting food in your supermarkets because, again, this is a system where everybody's a little bit sick, right? Everybody has some sort of pre-existing or chronic conditions, especially young people now at an alarming rate. And it's because of unhealthy and unnatural things that go far beyond food and, just physical things, but it's the way that we live. Like we're not connected to our souls. We're not connected to, divinity. We're not living the way we're designed to live. We live unnatural lives. The social system, people are so screwed up psychologically, and just the vibratory nature of our, the low vibratory nature of our lives, right? And, everything's like some sort of a poison. If it's not physical poison, it's spiritual poison, right? People are suffering, and, there's the depression, and all those things lead to, health issues, right? People who are, have lost the will to live, and they may or may not be suicidal, but they're making poor choices because they just don't care anymore. And so this guy's talking about, people who have, misinformation in this context, and the way CNN likes to think about it, is anybody that doesn't agree with the official story. But the people who put out the official story often have been proven to be liars, and they have financial incentive and, plans, agendas that are not in our best interests, right? And so, I mean, this is where we are. Like, this is, how bad the lies have become. And, we're just putting things out like this that aren't scientific or don't have any factual basis behind it. And then there'll be like all this push. I mean, they're pushing every day to, shut people up, right? To get people to just, knuckle under and agree with the people who have proven to have poor character qualities and not be, good people. And we're just supposed to go along with these liars and these controlled shills, right? I mean, that's where we are as a country. So this is how this works. So this is Axios, right? That Trevor Noah was applauding. Axios is they have an HBO show and they're become some powerful news agency out of the blue, right? I don't know how long they've existed, but they've just become like, mainstream and talked about. And so they said this. They covered this story. Misinformation spurring U.S. life expectancy erosion, FDA chief says. And we just saw that CNN piece, and he didn't say anything. He didn't show any scientific evidence. He didn't prove misinformation. Like, he's just saying, okay, life expectancy has dropped 5 years pre-COVID, and it must be misinformation, right? Like, that's the only reason. There's no scientific data. He didn't present anything scientific. He said, I don't even know how to quantify this thing because, he doesn't have any scientific data. And so this is him just talking. He has a position. He's a doctor, and he's the chief of the FDA, so he's considered an expert, but he didn't bring you any scientific data. And so then he says this. He said that he told CNN, so they're quoting from this report we just saw, that he didn't say anything. There's nothing substantive of what he said, right? He said nearly 1 million people have died of COVID, and he's saying that the reason because of that has to do with misinformation, but that's not why life expectancy has dropped, because those numbers haven't come in yet, right? He even said it himself, right? And then he says here, there's no way to quantify his belief that misinformation is a leading cause of death in the U.S. Well, then why did you put it as a headline, right? There's no way to quantify. Well, then why are you saying it out loud like it's fact, right? Because people are going to run with this, and they're going to try to suppress people who are voicing their own opinions or their own research on the internet, right? But I have no way to prove this. I don't have any information or scientific data, but it's just my gut feeling, right? The reason why they're banning people for disinformation is because people don't have scientific data to back their claims, their opinions, right? That's why people are being, censored in one way or another, because they don't have scientific data and they don't agree with the science, the so-called science in air quotes, right? The religion of science, right? We used to have, religion where people would quote the Bible and the Bible was the authority. Now it's these scientists in air quotes who are the new, pastors, and they're the only ones who get to interpret the data. Just like there used to be, you couldn't own a Bible before Lutheranism. There was people, wanting to own Bibles. They couldn't read the Bible. The Bible was printed in Latin, right? Most people couldn't read it in Europe or whatever it was. I mean, and then the people who could interpret the Bible were the authority, the church and the pastors and things. Now it's the, medical people who are the only people who can, not the medical people, but the governmental paid scientists. Only the right type of scientists can gather and interpret scientific data, right? Everybody else is out. And so this is, think about what they're saying here, right? He said right here, he has no way to quantify his belief that's the leading cause of death, but pointed out to the erosion of life expectancy that an average 5 years shorter than other high-income countries. And here it is. By the numbers, this is what I said. Like, I didn't even know this, but I said it and I was right. Because every time I look up statistics like this, birth rate, death rate, or anything to do with, large population numbers, they're always 3 years or 4 years behind, right? They don't have up-to-the-date statistics. There's historically a high drop in estimated life expectancy in 2020 from about 78.9 years going to 2019, 77 years in 2020, right? A fall of 1.9 years. And so they don't have the numbers in yet for COVID times, right? And so there, he said 5 years, but it's a drop of 2 years. He's saying it's 5 years below other countries, right? But it's only been a drop of this much, right? 1.9 years. And he was quoting COVID. He was talking about COVID, and they don't even have the numbers yet, right? And so that isn't science. That's not scientific way of talking about things. And so these reports are completely, you can't, like it right here when he says that he has no way to quantify his belief, okay, then you shouldn't say anything. Then you're putting out what you call misinformation. You have no way to prove what you're saying. It's just a gut feeling you have? Like your gut, you're just talking from your gut? Like, crazy conspiracy theorists do, right? Talking about their gut, right? No proof, but oh yeah, this I feel it in my gut, right? Like, speaking of feeling it in your gut, sad dumpling, Amy Schumer tests positive for COVID-19 just a few days after joking about feeling a little smug about having not caught it yet. This is how, celebrities are dropping like flies, right?
Okay, so I guess I'm going to post a little bit because I'm lonely. But really what I wanted to say was that COVID is giving me this incredible Elizabeth Holmes voice. This is what I sound like.
You mean Elizabeth Holmes? I just did a video on her, right? And she, Elizabeth Holmes, trying to talk like that. I mean, there's a scene from the show where the actress, and I don't know if this actually happened in the real story, is practicing this deep voice that she does, right? So that's what your takeaway from COVID is?
Now that I have COVID, Theranos. Also, my friend Matt Heineman made an incredible documentary about COVID called The First Wave. Anyway, I'm just lonely.
I know it's going to be, right? Kind of know what that documentary is going to sound like.
Bored. I am away from my family, which is great because they won't get it, I hope. Even though, are we all going to get it? Anyway.
Apparently, you were joking about, she was being smug about not getting it. Now she's gotten it.
Mostly this is just because I wanted to share my Elizabeth Holmes voice. What should I watch?
Not something by Amy Schumer, because it's not funny.
All that matters to me at this point is Anna Delvey. So I know a lot of people have reached out saying that they hope I feel better and that they're psyched about my Theranos voice, but my whole world is Anna Delvey, and that's who I am now.
Okay, well, I guess those two criminals are a step up from being sad dumpling Amy Schumer. Okay, so there's some other things people have sent me. I've had these up on my toolbar for a while. This is something new. Tyson Food raises full year sales outlook to $54 billion as price of beef skyrockets 24%. Chicken climbs 14% due to labor and feed costs, while inflation spirals out of control. And so there are, taking advantage of all these things. I'm not going to get into the numbers, but we all know that food prices are going up. Just go to the grocery store. Video sky over Chinese city turns to blood red and triggers panic among locals, and here's why. I don't know, is it the pollution? Or is it the apocalypse? There's this guy. It's the apocalypse, they're saying. The apocalypse is upon us. So there's that. The smell is terrible. Toxic foam clouds float through the streets of Bogota suburb. And so, in Colombia they got this. In China they got the red sky. America we got Amy Schumer. Right? Millions of bees die after Delta Airlines shipping mishap. About 5 million honeybees bound for Alaska last weekend got waylaid when Delta Airlines routed them through Atlanta, where most of the bees died after being left for hours in crates on the ground during hot weather. They ship bees around to pollinate different types of crops, right? You can order bees. People will send you their bees, and you can rent their bees to pollinate your crops. And, this happened here, but I don't know, it's about 100 hives. This is something that's happened with the airlines. Delta called it an unfortunate situation. So this was just a really good example today. I mean, every day is a good example, but today's video really summed up the apocalypse, right? Because it's funny, but it's collapsing. And a system collapses, a marriage collapses, one way or another. I mean, one person dies, eventually both die. And if a marriage collapses, like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard type of a situation, that's what that sort of an apocalypse looks like, right? And you see it in businesses, you see it, in your physical body. And when things break down, they're in the destructive cycle. This is what you see, right? In terms of these do-gooders, I mean, you have a lot of people who are really about other people changing, right? Like you have other people that they need other people to change, I mean, you have it here in the truth community, you have it all over the place. And they're not going to, right? But very few people want to change themselves. And, I got something I want to talk about, something that every town and every city should be doing. And if there was real, people who are concerned about what's going on, they would do it. But even with the information that you have personally, what are you doing to prepare? Other than diving into the cesspit and looking at all the bad news. I mean, that's what most people who do, this sort of truther stuff do. They're not doing anything to adapt and prepare themselves. That's what Pockets of the Future means. Living today as everyone's going to have to live in the future, right? That some people have to be ahead of the curve, see what's going to happen and prepare themselves and start adapting to the changes that are coming or the whole species goes down. And so that's, I'm not Pockets. Like I'm not some person, people call me Pockets. No, I'm not. It has nothing to do with me. I mean, it's an idea that came to me. I talked about the Shifty in my upcoming Journey series thing that's going to probably release today or tomorrow. The spiritual experience that I had in heartfulness meditation that led to me starting this, this idea came to me that there would be people who had to start adapting. My channel is mostly about homesteading, milking cows, and learning to do things that people used to do in the past, right? Growing food and whatever else, right? But the system's collapsing, and lots of people see it, but very few people are doing anything about it, right? Going to Costco and stocking up on toilet paper is not dealing with the problem, or just watching, the collapse. I mean, it's funny, and you might as well. It's like an interesting part of the show. I mean, this has been the show, and now we're in the phase where the system, the sort of evil system, is collapsing, and that's a good part of the show. But it's not gonna. I mean, watching it collapse doesn't make you ready for what's going to come next, right? And preparing for that, figuring out what you need to do. The heartfulness meditation is connecting to God, which helps people adjust. But there's plenty of people who do heartfulness that aren't adapting, right? Aren't dealing with what's happening here. And just dismissing it because it's psychologically uncomfortable isn't going to save the species. And of course, there's a case for the species not being saved or not deserving to be saved. But it's kind of our duty to give it the old college try. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely born for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.